Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, Google. We'd love to hear what you think. My name is Shiro Tori, and I will be your host today. And I cannot wait to start talking about increasing enrollment from digital marketing channels by 42%, as well as talk on the first 90 days as a higher ed CMO. And for the conversation, I'm very excited to have Kin Sejpal join us today. Kin is the VP of Marketing Communications and the Chief Marketing Officer at the University of Redlands. I also got to meet her earlier this week in Chicago at AMA, so that was a nice added touch as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It was so great to meet you in real life.
I know it's always a good opportunity to meet someone from the podcast in IRL, as they
IRL,
say.
as they say. Yes, we try to be cool, right? I'm sure there's another way to say it these days that I might learn from TikTok someday.
I know. It is a big acronym that's popular. And I love to always ask all my guests to create a little icebreaker for the show. Tell me what you love about higher ed.
Oh, wow. Well, there's so many things. So maybe I will start with it's such a collegial community of change makers. I think that is perhaps the most succinct way I can talk about why I love higher ed and why I love higher ed marketing. There is so much more about higher education and about its transformative power. We all are in it because we know it and we recognize it. But as an international student, I wouldn't be where I am without higher education. And I know that's the story of a lot of people, but in my case, it particularly has made a world of difference, no pun intended.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, let's jump in. Can you tell us a little bit about your higher ed journey and your take on its transformative power and how it's helped you to reach where you are today?
Yes. Um, once upon a time, I was born in India and, just humble background, lower middle class, as they would call it there. There was a lot of class system that people would self-categorize into or others would categorize for them. And the idea of where I am today was really not even a passing thought that I had because it felt so out of the realm of possibility. It's like somebody thinking, oh, yeah, they're going to end up in Mars someday. Right. So that was the level of expectation or lack thereof that I had.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had the opportunity to pursue my master's degree at Purdue University, I made the leap from India to Indiana. So just added a couple of letters, but a whole world of change. The reason I was able to afford that was because of tuition assistantships. And as a graduate student, you do get some stipends and things like that. So jumped in on that opportunity. And fast forward a few years at Purdue, where I got my 2 degrees, 2 master's degrees, one in communications, one was an MBA, and then ended up working there because of what I had studied in grad school was very relevant, and what I was practicing in grad school as my projects or assistantship projects with my faculty were around branding. And so I found myself full time at Purdue University, and I am eternally grateful to my supervisor there that took a chance on me and gave me the opportunity to work in a newly reorganized marketing and communications area, which again, for that time, it was very ahead of its time. Um, we introduced this idea of brand. We introduced this idea of student as a customer. We introduced this idea of reputation and image building through consistent brand narratives and such. We introduced the idea of data and analytics in marketing function. And as my mentor would say, the ABCs of marketing is what we really lived by, which is about the customer, build the brand, and combine the art and science. So the ABCs have been ingrained in my brain forever. And then I had the opportunity to take what I had learned and done at Purdue, which was brand management, enrollment marketing, and market research and analytics, and oversee that at Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, in upstate New York. And that was a pivotal moment for me too, because all the areas that I was ingrained in and having my hands in and doing it firsthand, I was now overseeing those functions and building those out. Then I had a 5-year itch to, once I completed 5 years at RIT, which were really, really great, was a great experience, to come to the University of Redlands and build out the marketing function and work closely on enrollment marketing in addition to building our reputation and differentiation strategy. So here I am, and the transformative power has really been that I I'm in a place in California that I never thought I would be in. I am able to support my family that is still back in India, that I didn't think was going to be possible. I mean, I knew I had to take care of them, but I didn't know that I would be able to do that to this extent. The transformative power has been in the way that has changed how I look at the world, and the global education that I was able to get, in the sense of just meeting students from all walks of life, but then also having a chance to work with and work at some global campuses. And then I never thought I'd be ever in a position to give back. Um, Although one can argue, no matter where you are and how much you make, there's always something that you can do to give back. And I'm talking about give back financially. I was giving back with time by mentoring international students while at Purdue, because I wanted them to have the same experience, or at least similar to what I did, which is really go all in on your education and experiential learning so that it opens up these opportunities for you in the future. So it was not a nonprofit, but I operated it as such. It wasn't like a registered
Hmm.
nonprofit, but I called it Kinship Career Services for International Students. It was pro bono work. I worked with students who were international that didn't really know how to navigate the job search environment because it was so different. And it's
Right.
all, people are very humble about how they get, how they talk about themselves. My goal was to really get them out of their shells. And yeah, so it's allowed me to give back to people in a way that I didn't think I could, and give back to some passion projects like animal welfare and things like that financially, to a higher education and such. So, I mean, I could go on about just from where I was to where I am and all the things I've been able to do, the number of countries I've been able to travel to,
Hmm.
both for work and outside of work. Um, and it's just opened up just so much appreciation for, and having a moment of gratitude, which I have to remind myself every day when it's like the daily grind kind of sucks you in. You're like,
Yeah,
oh gosh, is this really worth it? And yes, it is worth it.
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's probably one of the more incredible stories I've heard on this podcast, coming from India and having all these different expectations in life, when you were young compared to where you're at now. So that's really incredible. And speaking to some of the incredible work you and your team at Purdue did, I actually just had Kate Young, who's the host of the This Is Purdue podcast, which is their official university podcast. And that I think launched early 2020. So I think some of those residuals or continuation rather of the work you did in 2017 through 19, I think, right? Around that period has contributed to some of the branding efforts that still continue. So they're doing incredible stuff. Like no one else has an official university podcast that I know of. And again, a great effort towards building that brand with their customers.
Well, I'd like to believe I had some hand in that, but it's all props to their new marketing team that they've built since Ethan went there and
Mm-hmm.
just build a machinery of this understanding of what the brand should be and is. Um, and that this, it's definitely a higher education is definitely progressed to a stage where people are embracing this concept of telling us
Mm-hmm.
stories, but not just telling us stories in print or in magazines. It's really about a unifying story. And then how do you get everybody on the brand wagon, like I like to say?
Yep, bandwagon, got it. Yeah, well, let's talk about marketing now. I know you've moved into this, more of a leadership role several times at this point now, and I'd love to hear about what key areas do you really focus on in those first few months or the first 90 days.
Yeah, so I really lived by the book of the first 90 days. And I just soaked it all in, expecting to really follow that to the T. Except, books and movies are very different from realities. So the whole idea of just coming in, understanding, listening before building, that didn't quite pan out the way the book
Mm.
suggested it should. So prior to my arrival here, the University of Redlands, and this is props to my President Newkirk, she had already engaged a consultant to do some org analysis and efficiency analysis. And as a result, the recommendation was to centralize all our marketing functions. I would say marketing and communications functions, and centralize our budgets as well in that vein. So it existed. Marketing was done in a very decentralized way, which is again not unusual, but it is
Mm-hmm.
unusual for a university of our size. So we are about 3,800 strong student body. And for our size to have that siloed approach to marketing definitely did not make sense. So when I came, I inherited all of these central resources, which I was very happy to get, but I still didn't know what I was going to do with it without really understanding where we needed to go. So it was a lot of building the plane while flying it, which tends to happen, but it was certainly the case for me when I had the marketing positions from different schools now reporting into me, and I had the marketing budgets that were now consolidated, and I had to kind of be a good steward of those funds because
Mm-hmm.
you want to do that obviously, but you also don't want to wash away or ignore how things have worked in the past. So the balance of the past and the future in achieving that in the present was an interesting dynamic to work through with my colleagues here and the deans and others. And it existed the way it did for a particular reason. It meant it worked during those times, and now
Mm-hmm.
this was what was needed according to the analysis work that I referenced previously. And when I got these positions that were more by beat, if you will, because that's how I think journalism works. You have a beat. That's how we had marketing functions, but it didn't make sense to have a generalist model. Um, you didn't really need to have all of the skills that a marketer needed to have and also have the specialized skills because it's almost impossible. It's you We are living in a world where you have to have specialists. You have to have
Hmm.
specialists who understand SEO, perhaps. You have to have specialists who understand brand management and brand experience management. You have to have
Hmm.
specialists that understand content strategy, so it just made sense to kind of retool that, but still have that T-shaped
Hmm.
individuals who understand what these other functions do and can speak to those, but also have that depth of knowledge and expertise in a particular area. And so determining what that would be and then how that would break down or be split between internal and external
Hmm.
resources. So, what do we take in house and what is important to have in house versus what we should have more external, not just because of headcounts and how many FTEs we want to have and things like that, but just so that we can be a bit more nimble and agile as we know marketing and technology is changing so rapidly. So that was sort of the my first 90 days is to come up with an investment strategy for our overall marketing efforts. And that was not just in paid media, but also in earned, shared, and owned media. And similarly, make sure that we had that mindset and approach toward building a team as well, that we were being thoughtful about the level of expertise that was needed in house to then work
Hmm.
on the tools that we also needed as well. So the tools and talent piece are so symbiotic, right? You can
Right.
have these SEO tools and you can have these tools for social listening. You can have virtual tours and things like that. But then who is helping manage those and making
Hmm.
sure that we are taking full advantage of that, setting it up appropriately, monitoring it, reporting on it. So I didn't want to jump into investing in things that we didn't have the people for.
Right.
So that was a very deliberate kind of approach that I took in my first 90 days and beyond, I'd say.
That's fantastic. So yeah, it sounds like, you really, what I'm hearing is you came into the team, and this is from just a team perspective. You figured out, like, here's what we have, here's what, person A, person B, person C is good at. They can specialize in this. Here's what we need. And so you really came in, looked at the whole thing as a big picture, worked on continuing that centralization that was put in place by your execs, and yeah, like started developing out from a thoughtful approach versus like you come in first days, hire the agency like immediately and just expect results.
Oh, yeah, no, anybody who does that or expects that is obvious. I don't think is working in a reality that is, yeah, is working reality, period, because that is not how
Hmm.
a long term game should be played. I mean, you're not in it to just come in, put a stamp on it, and say, okay, I did my part. And you want to create those relationships. I mean, a big
Hmm.
part of this was really creating and building relationships with people, with my own team, not just saying these are the functions we need, but how good are you at those functions, or how where do you want to be, what would you like to do in your own career, and then let's do a little matchmaking here if there is that opportunity to do so. And
Hmm.
fortunately, it worked out that the team that I did inherit, they were specialists. They just didn't know it.
That's fantastic.
And to channel their skills and talent in that area of expertise was both something that the institution and a department gained from, but hopefully
Hmm.
also channeled them into a career path that they were looking to pursue.
Yeah, and let me ask just to follow up. I know previously we talked, and you have a strong emphasis or focus on collecting data and bringing data into the conversation as well. And what were some kind of like, doesn't have to be the first 90 days, but like first year, like what were some data points that really helped understand like the bigger picture coming into this position?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really believe in the power of data. I was a data, I don't want to say expert or a guru, but I was overseeing data and analytics at Purdue, and then not
Hmm.
just overseeing, I was doing it at Purdue. Like I had my hands in it. I was in Qualtrics, I was in Google Data Studio, and GA4. Wait, it wasn't GA4. It was still Google Analytics back then, and all of
Yep.
that. And then at RIT, I was overseeing that and trying to continue to find ways to connect data sources where we could. And now coming here, there was no real data infrastructure. So for me, it was really important first to get that mindset about building a data focused infrastructure so that the people feel that this is not just one more thing that we have to do, because you when you're a small but mighty team, you tend to feel like, okay, here is one more wish list of things that we have to do and add to our plates. Well, it just has to become part of the culture. It has to become part of the culture that you measure what you're
Hmm.
doing. We got a project management system to measure the volume of work. That is not to say that that is the only piece of data that we would need, but when you talk about resource and resource allocation, you can't be talking about that ambiguously. You want to try and support that with information and data where possible. Similarly, with the investment strategy, one of the things that I did when I came in was, which I alluded to a little bit previously, but here I'll go into a little bit more depth. I really looked into what were all the commitments made toward marketing, and I used some of the analysis that was done by the prior consultant, and try to kind of combine and consolidate and see where all the marketing investment was being made in a very decentralized or very siloed environment. And then once I got a sense of that, um, I found so many ways that we could be efficient. I mean, the
Hmm.
biggest way and the most common way, I suppose, is to centralize digital marketing efforts,
Right.
um, because we were literally competing against each other. You would search for University of Redlands, and you could have paid search ads in Google that were taking you to all different programs or different schools, and they were all kind of in the same using the same keywords apparently, because you could see
Uh-huh.
that. And so we should have come up once, not four times, and not for four different programs. And by the way, not we never came up for the institution at all. We just came up
Mm.
for
That's
us.
interesting.
We came up for schools, we came up for programs, we came up for other things outside of, hey, come check out this university. So the paid search has always been such an important data point for really many institutions and many
Hmm.
others. And it was no different for us, but it was really jarring for our board and others to really get a sense of when that was happening, to be like, okay, we got to do something here.
Right.
And then we found some efficiency. So when I did do that investment planning, and we put it back into the media, we obviously didn't pay for a lot of duplicative efforts, or really no duplicative efforts.
Hmm.
Had one media plan, one agency, one creative partner, one everything. Like my president likes to say, we are putting the uni back in the university, and we were trying to do that even at the marketing level. We found like a six-figure efficiency,
Wow.
um, in terms of being able to put that back into the market, So the budget for that was put into market the prior year compared to the budget that we were able to put into market this year had at least a six-figure difference, or I would say 20% difference.
Wow.
We were able to put 20% more back into the media, just by shuffling things and then bringing them together, taking a step back and saying, here's all the needs that we'll still fulfill, but we will do it at a university level that will lift all boats.
What is that? I'm sure you put those inefficiency savings back into marketing comms, right? I think you had a statistic around the increase in digital marketing or enrollment from digital marketing as well. And so, how did you spread those numbers from that, and what were the results there?
Yeah, so I've been here a year and a half, so we are still trying to
Right.
get a sense of what this is paying, what type of ROI we are seeing on the centralization. So on one side there's efficiency, and the other side there's effectiveness. Efficiency, we proved it. I think we proved it pretty early on
Mm-hmm.
that becoming one organization, one department was going to yield in 20% more, at least
Mm-hmm.
financial resources. It also yielded in more human resources. The other piece is the effectiveness. On the effectiveness piece, when we compared for a particular area of study and school year over year, they used to work in they had their own digital marketing agencies as well to help support. So when it was decentralized, everybody had their own firms. So it's not that we didn't do any marketing or they didn't do any marketing, but they did what they thought was best. And again, there was no malevolent or ill will toward that. That was what worked, especially during the pandemic when there was no time to kind of think about big
Mm-hmm.
picture types of things for a lot of the people that were here. um, so we compared that particular area of study in school in their digital marketing efforts, and we attribute that in Slate. We have the first source information, which one can argue, it's, how accurate that is and such and such. But it was a graduate study, so the attribution there is a little bit easier because it doesn't go into this common app
Mm-hmm.
black hole and things like that.
Right.
And so from what was done last year to what was done this year, we saw that digital marketing as a first source contributed 42% more toward enrollment
Wow.
than, yeah. And the that school is on the upward trajectory in enrollment. So it wasn't one, the school is on upward trajectory in enrollment. So
Mm-hmm.
that already was sort of a correlation piece that we were all very excited about. But I
Mm-hmm.
needed to prove some causation. And so the causation was to really work with our enrollment systems partners. And in fact, now I have a shared position with enrollment system. So the Slate folks and my team has a shared analyst position who looks at really what we are seeing on the enrollment side, what we are seeing on the marketing side, and what is the attribution piece between the two. And that was the reporting that he was able to do for us and give us that attribution percentage, that we were able to then feel a sense of more confidence that yes, there is not just efficiency in doing this, there's also effectiveness in doing this.
Efficiency and effectiveness. I like how you laid everything out too. It makes it really easy to understand for me as well. Thank you. I have
Of
one
course.
specific question around how previously, like Google search, and I like to talk tactics too, how the Google search engine results were cannibalizing each other, right? Was that because each school or unit was working with their own agency or running ads themselves? Is that why that happened? Or
Yes, pretty much. I mean, yes, exactly. They had their own budgets, so they were able to do. I mean, I think that in the beginning there was a time when they all started out with one firm, but then for because when you have your own sort of goals, and people were accountable to
mm-hmm.
when you have the accountability to see results in your own school or college, then you do whatever you think is best for that.
Right.
And if that means I'm going to go with an agency that I think has the most potential
Right.
or is better in terms of cost per leads, whatever the rationale is, that's what they would do, and that's what they did. And again, no ill will there. They just did that in
Yeah.
the best interest of their school.
No, that makes sense. Like, you're set to do a job, and so you want to do it the best. It's just foundationally it wasn't the correct one. So that's what ran into it. I'm curious. So now, when you look at like a very specific example of like how you determine Google search and where spend goes into different schools, like how does the meeting with your agency, maybe you run your ads internally, but like what does that look like? How does each school get their say now, and like how does that conversation or meeting happen?
Yeah, so I've always maintained that there's three legs of the stool for in order to ensure effective marketing and enrollment
Hmm.
um, results and success. So that is one, your enrollment partners; two, the marketing and communications; and three, the academics. And bringing those three legs of the stool is what makes that stool sturdy. And the intention and intent was really to ensure that they didn't feel slighted in this whole centralization effort, and that we used math and data to really allocate spend. So when we did have those agency discussions and we consolidated the budgets, we did it based on the expected enrollment headcount by different schools. It's like you just try to be as proportionate as possible to that. It was a little lopsided before, where certain schools and colleges that had a lower expectation of new student headcount had
Hmm.
higher budgets versus those who had a higher expectation and goals and financial modeling for
Hmm.
more students had a lower budget. So we did need to correct that. I mean, and everybody understood that, including the ones that did have
Right.
more budget previously. But then we also factored some of the that's just an apples to apples kind of a, a ratio modeling that we did. But then, there are nuances in certain fields. Some schools and some areas of study are going to be more expensive because of the competitive marketplace in that area. So we try to incorporate some of that in allocation as well. So when we did all of that math, I think we came to a pretty unified understanding that this is how we should allocate budgets going forward. And this is how and let's test it. I mean, if we feel that change of investment strategy is negatively impacting somebody, or not somebody, but an area or a school, let's first assess, is that a change in investment that did that, or is there something more to it? um, in fact, we found out that one of the changes that we made, we did see a little bit lower volume of leads, because of, I think, maybe the change in investment. But again, like I said, there could be other factors, but they converted a lot better down the funnel.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, if the goal is to really get people all the way through the funnel, does it matter if you start with 1,000 and you get 10, or you
Right.
start with 500 and you get 20, right? And so that's what we are, again, with this analyst shared position, we are monitoring that, is if we start to see the conversion metrics also impacted, then we want to start thinking about how do we kind of reassess our investment approach. But because we saw the success downstream, even though the numbers upstream were a little concerning, we have still stuck to the same approach.
That was super insightful. That really helps me understand. Like everything you just said was super insightful. And yes, to add to the conversation around conversion rates at the end of the funnel, like that's something we're experiencing in my job right now too. It's like actually trying to focus more on quality now, because we know that after we did the data analysis, which you need to do, we found that that was actually a better CPA or cost per acquisition that versus like just trying to get as many leads into the funnel. So that's very top of mind for me. I'm really glad you explained all that. Switching the conversation a little bit back from the technical, which I love getting into the details of. So I appreciate you sharing all that. But taking a step back, with AMA earlier this week, AMA Symposium, American Marketing Association in Chicago, and talking about the broader scope of higher ed and their market. What are you excited for in 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, that's interesting timing of this conversation because as I'm still a little, I'm still feeling all that energy from and excitement from the conference, which by the way I was on the planning committee for. So it feels like a birth, my third baby in the sense because it's my third year with AMA, Higher Ed Planning Committee, and it was the best in the sense of it broke records in terms of the number of attendees and things like that. But there was, talking about quantity and quality, right? It was also about quality discussions around what are the challenges facing higher education? How can we as Marcom professionals have a role to play? And what is our role to play in the future of higher education? And in fact, that was really what a lot of the sessions were about, including the last session that I moderated with Scott Jasic from Inside Higher Ed, who talked about the top 10 issues and challenges that higher education is facing and what Marcom professionals can do about it. And those are big things. But the main takeaway for me has been really the fact that you want to do more collective thinking than just individual level thinking, more formal ways to advocate for higher education. So I work with CASE um, as a volunteer, which is the Council of Advancement and Support of Education, on trying to position and counter that narrative about higher education and its value. So I'm on a task force that is launching an initiative called Discover the Next to really position higher education, not an institution, but imagine how we bring all the schools and colleges under one brand umbrella. Now at our institution. Now we are bringing all the institutions under one brand umbrella under the category of higher education. So what I'm really excited about is at the category level is continuing to do the work to help kind of brand higher education as a value add for everybody. The other piece that I'm excited on a more nuanced level is that marketing is not just about promotion; it is about product as well. And I have been fortunate to be in discussions where I have been a part of the product. And by product in this case, I mean programs. You can define product in so many ways. So I've been fortunate at RIT and now at U of R, University of Redlands, to be in in those discussions about what products do we want to offer, having access to those data to understand what is the market demand there, what is the employer demand, and things like that. So I'm very excited to finally, I mean, not finally, I've been in these conversations, but really help showcase, hopefully, and have maybe a presentation or two at AMA, who knows, about how this does work. And it's time that marketers had a seat, not just at the table, at the cabinet level, which a lot of institutions now do, according to the Simpson Scarborough research, but that we have an influence and power to define what it is that we want to offer in the first place before we are brought in to, hey, come push this out in the toward the end of the decision making process. So for me, that is very exciting, and I can't wait. Again, I'm a data geek, and that those data driven decisions on what programs to build, what to sunset, and how to package them effectively so we don't create marketplace confusion, so we are empathetic in how we approach our students, especially at University of Redlands. We have um, so many first generation students. We have almost half of a student body, and so we really need to do a better job of packaging what we have to offer in a way that is empathetic, understandable, and shows that we are here to serve them and serve students first.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that was fantastic. And I echo, I was at AMA and went to a lot of sessions as well. And I echo similar kind of takeaways, like super high level, like, how to join the higher ed conversation as a whole industry and reshaping the narrative. And so, I feel the same way about what you just said. So love that reply as well. We're just about at time here today, and I'm wondering where our listeners can follow up with you to understand what you're up to or what the Redlands is up to.
Yeah, so they can obviously find me at University of Redlands. I am on the cabinet here. And my email should be out there if they just searched. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to connect there. I got I have ebbed and flowed on Twitter/X. I haven't been able to make up my mind on that one. I did kind of take a step back, but then when AMA came around, I dove right in again because I'm like, I need to find my people. So that might be more event specific than a constant
Mhm.
way of connecting. So, yep, I am happy to be reached at any of these channels and happy to connect and talk further.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining. That was a brilliant conversation. I had a great time, and thanks for our audience for listening in as well.
Thank you for having me.